Hey everybody, we're here in New York City today, or actually all week. We're looking for stories of grit and determination, resiliency. No greater place than New York City. We've got the One World Trade Center right behind us. Welcome, Spartans. We're here in the beautiful rest of tranquil.
I was going to say that this would be interesting for our viewers and our listeners who are familiar with Joe. You know, certainly the public Joe. They probably wouldn't usually put restive and tranquil in the same sentence.
Right.
So it's
but for this particular episode, it will be, because I'll make it clear here in a second. And as usual, to my side here, I don't know all these.
I feel restful and tranquil.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. Zephyr's tranquil and restful. Johnny seems to be a little ramped up, but I think we're going to be able to take care of that. And Della's over there. I'm not sure what she's doing at this moment.
Cool as a cucumber.
She's cool as a cucumber.
And how's Marion doing? Our ever fearless leader.
Sometimes Marion is so restful and peaceful we forget that she's there.
I never forget.
She's doing such a great job. It's fantastic.
All right, well, Bob Roth, who we're going to talk to, is a noted transcendental meditation
tree
expert
painter
who's been in this business for 40 plus years. Has got some great stories, great insight, great client kind of stuff, and has done some miraculous things. So I got the privilege of sitting down and talking to him. So let's go roll that tape. We'll come back and talk about it.
Cool, yeah, and he's helped some really famous people who we cannot name.
I'm here today with Bob Roth, a noted transcendental meditation expert. A man who's been doing this, I read, for 45 years or so, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Long time.
And so you are one of the, as I said, noted or renowned experts.
Just been at it a long time.
Well, globally. So
yeah.
I got to tell you, I know zero about it. To me, it's probably taking a nap or something.
Right. Well, I grew up in a military family.
Oh,
My
wow.
father was a medic in World War II. He worked at the VA hospital in San Francisco, injured officer. And I grew up with a discipline, military discipline, but my upbringing was, I know it sounds strange now, but I always wanted to go into politics. I wanted to make change. Now it sounds weird, but way back when.
No, I don't think it's strange.
But way back when, because I was raised with a mission that you have to give back. You have to create a better world. Yeah, service. And along the way, I heard about something called Transcendental Meditation when I was just 18 years old, and I thought, oh God, not on your life. Wasn't even in my vocabulary. I'm like a doer, an activist. And someone said, no, this technique has its roots in ancient times. It was a meditation for warriors. It was to give them calm and clarity and equanimity so that they could do battle and not overreact and not get angry and not get vengeful and just be calm in the midst of the storm. And I learned it and I loved it. And with the permission of my father, I became a teacher of transcendental meditation.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask you about. How did your family react to that then?
My father was a scientist, and I showed him the research on transcendental meditation. The word meditation has so many connotations.
Right.
You can think it's, well, that's what you do when you're in church and there's a time for silent meditation. Or you can think it's a sect, or you can think it's whatever, something, a waste of time, or whatever. And the word meditation is sort of like the word food. I mean, there's good food and there's bad food. There's food that makes you sick and there's food that makes you powerful. And meditation is the same. Meditation just means thinking. And there are types of meditation that are philosophy. Transcendental meditation, or TM, no philosophy, no change in lifestyle, no religion, a tool that anyone can learn. That you can. I'm a very skeptical guy. You know, when you think of the word meditation teacher, you think, oh, the guy's going to be wearing robes or something.
Well, I did ask your assistant, Reese.
Reese.
Where were the waterfalls? Where was the incense? Where was the mood music? And
none of that.
None of that, exactly.
I am a skeptic. I'm a cynic. I'm like everybody else. I'm a normal guy. And because of the scientific upbringing and my father's focus on service and also the military, I'm a skeptic, but I'm not so close. I'm not closed-minded. I'm willing to look. I'm willing to. You show me evidence. You show me proof. And there was so much research on this that I couldn't ignore it. For reducing stress, for waking up the brain, for giving you more energy and more resilience. And I loved that I could be 100% skeptical. I mean, when I asked my teacher about it, she held up a tennis ball and she said, "You can be skeptical about gravity. You can think it's a crock, You dropped it.
But
You let go.
It's going to fall, right?
Going to fall. Same with this particular TM. Belief is irrelevant. We're working on military bases all over the country. As a matter of fact, we receive large grants, many millions of dollars from the Department of Defense and the VA hospital to work with active duty military and also veterans and now cadets to
West
teach
Point
TM.
or ROTC
West Point,
or
West Point, ROTC. We're at right here in New York at Hamilton, at Fort Hamilton.
Okay.
We're at down in Augusta, Georgia. We're in the Eisenhower VA hospital. We're here at the VA hospital in Manhattan and Brooklyn for one reason: stress is a killer.
Yeah.
Stress is a killer, and whether you have acute toxic stress or traumatic stress from combat, or just the stress of transitioning from combat or wherever back home, and that stress, and then the stress of transitioning to the workplace, stress is a killer.
And I certainly don't want to make this a military show because it's not.
Fine.
But you know,
I'm inspired.
Well, I appreciate that because there is when you go on deployment, whether you've been in combat or not, if you go away from home for a year and you come back, the lifestyle of your household may have changed. Your
Kids
wife,
don't know you
your
anymore.
wife or your husband's roles have changed. Your kids don't treat you the same, and so there's a reintegration process that has to take place, and a relearning of everybody's roles within that society, right? And that can cause great stress, and it's not only when you return, but I've learned over the years that it also happens before you leave. And you get pre-stressed and you start taking it out. It's easier to leave someone when you're mad,
Right.
than
Right.
when everything is good. So anyway, if you're working, and I shouldn't say if your work with the vets, I think that's got to be great because I can imagine that anything that helps them kind of achieve that peace, that quiet.
Well, look,
and
it looks just
reflective-
like this. It doesn't look anything different than this.
Okay, that's not good for TV though. All right?
I know, I'm not done. But in other words, you're not sitting in a pretzel position.
Right.
You can have a coat on, you can like that. And it's a technique, the analogy I like to use is of an ocean where you're on a little boat and you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, you get these giant waves.
Okay.
And you could think, oh my God, the whole ocean is in upheaval, 30, 40 foot high swells. But Tim, do a cross section of the ocean. You got these little itty bitty 30-foot waves and the ocean is a mile deep.
Right.
And at the depth of the ocean, silent.
Right.
So the mind is the same. The surface of the mind is the worried, active, planning. I call it the gotta mind.
Yeah.
And it sometimes doesn't stop when you got to go to sleep. Now, we hypothesize that deep within you and me and every skeptical person watching this show, there's a level of their mind right now that is completely calm and settled by nature. And transcendental meditation, TM, and transcend, all it means is to go beyond the noise. So transcend, it means to go beyond that, to just settle, is a technique that gives access to that effortlessly. And when that happens, your body gains a state of rest deeper than the deepest part of deep sleep. And there's a hormone, and I won't go too heavy into this, there's a hormone called cortisol. You ever feel anxious?
Yeah, I'm familiar with cortisol.
You ever feel anxious?
Sure.
When you're anxious, your body secretes cortisol.
I prefer to think that I don't feel anxious, but I'm sure that probably
there are
in my life
times,
I have.
and some people watching get anxious.
Sure.
When you get a good night's sleep, cortisol levels will drop 10%. In 20 minutes of TM, cortisol levels drop 40%.
Oh, wow.
And it wakes up the brain, and that's why it's a warrior's meditation. And everybody's a warrior. To be a dad is to be a warrior.
Well, I was
to be a
gonna say
wife, a mother is a warrior. It's not just for military.
And I also read one of the other big groups of people you're working with is teens, at-risk teens specifically.
And every teen is at risk.
Well, right, and I would agree with you. Some more than others.
Yeah, that's true.
Not everybody has the same tools,
Right.
same family upbringing, and the rest of those kind of things. So, so how are the children, I guess, or how the teens responding to all of
They're
this?
great. Younger generation, like I'm 65, so I'm an older guy. My parents' generation heard the word meditation, they said, oh God. But then my generation, a little bit more open to it, well, the research. Kids today, it's part of their lexicon. It's just the norm. So you tell them you're going to teach meditation, and they go, great, they want to do it, and they love it because the results are immediate.
Now, have we seen results? I mean,
Oh, yes.
As far as acting out, school behaviors, discipline?
We have received large grants. In Chicago, for example, they have a real problem with youth violence. We've received $300,000 and next year $1 million to teach whole schools we call it quiet time, to meditate. And we're doing that all over 500,000 kids we've taught to meditate. And what they find is suspensions and expulsions and dropout rates decrease, plus drug abuse. And more importantly, or as importantly, grades, test scores, graduation rates. Why? Because they're just not stressed out of their mind. They're more healthy and they're more themselves.
And I don't know if you've had a chance. Does the ADHD and the rest of
You're asking all the great questions. Yeah.
Well, thank you. First person to ever say that.
You will.
What's the impact there? I mean, are they harder to reach, or is there?
No, the interesting thing about ADHD, attention hyperactivity disorder, is it's a function of this. This part of your brain is called the prefrontal cortex. It's the size of your fist, and that's right behind your forehead, and that's executive functioning. That's decision making and judgment and planning, what governs, and sense of self and problem solving. And a child who has ADHD that's a problem of executive functioning. Now, if they're stressed or tired, they're not sleeping well, or anxious, then that's even worse. It exacerbates it. And when you sit quietly and you meditate, you do TM, the mind and body get this deep rest. The connections in the brain are strengthened. It's all neural pathways. It's all brain.
It clears those pathways.
And resets the neural pathways.
All right. Well, look, I am learning a lot here, obviously, because
well, science.
You pegged me as a skeptic right away, so I am learning quite a bit. But what we'll do is we'll take a quick break here. We'll just talk off camera on a couple things. We'll come back and then we'll talk to you about, again, how do you apply some of the lessons learned to our broader audience and Spartan kind of people in general. We believe a lot of the exact same things that you're talking about, but achieve them through physical exercise. But I think
we want both.
I think we want both, and I think there's a lot of it's not similarity, but symbiotic relationship there. So, all right. So we'll be back in a couple minutes.
I hope you're not sitting still while you listen. If you are, you better get a burpee break in.
Spartans, what is your workout? I was heading into the gym, and guess what? Door's locked. I don't need a gym. We just wrote a great book called Spartan Fit. We're putting the finishing touches on it. We're designing the cover. It is a nightmare, by the way. Don't ever write a book. Spartan Fit is coming out. We'd love to get you pre-registered for this book. It's a 30-day program that will change your life. How do I know? I know because for 40 years, my mother tortured me. She'd made me do all kinds of workouts with monks and yogis and weightlifters, you name it. I had all kinds of crazy things going on in my living room. I promise you, you're going to love this book, Spartan Fit. Go to the website, get pre-registered. See you soon.
Join the Spartan Revolution. Pre-order now at SpartanFitBook.com and save 25% with the code FIT25.
All right, so we're back on air, and as we were off air, Bob was telling us a little bit more again about kind of the definition, but also kind of more the history of TM. So just...
Well, I think that what's interesting now, that someone said to me, why there's so much interest in meditation now, all of a sudden. A serious interest in medical schools and research institutes and companies and professional athletic teams. And I think it's like a confluence, a perfect storm of three things. One, the problem of stress is worse than ever. And not just stress, I'm in trauma, but just living life.
Yeah.
Second, there is no magic pill that modern medicine has. Oh, take this and you won't get stressed. Or you're stressed, take this and it'll go away. It masks it. We can mask it with or we can manage it with medicine, or we can mask it with 6 glasses of wine, but there's no pill. And the third is science. There's so much research on TM now. And the point that I feel is it's necessary that we don't, in our skepticism about the word meditation, we don't just say, oh, I don't believe in any of that, because there's too big of a field. It turns out maybe 90% of this stuff is bogus, but there's 10% that can be life-saving, and that's what's coming out now.
Now, it seems to me that, again, there's some overlap between what TM is doing and what yoga is doing, but more of a physical nature. Is there any connectivity there?
The word yoga just means union, and it's a union of mind and body and spirit or soul.
You're like a thesaurus, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you know the definition.
Well, I've been at it a long time.
You know the definition.
So
of
you have
word.
yoga postures, which are stretching exercises. But then you have meditation, which is union also. So it just brings the mind and body together. So you bring the mind and body together by stretching exercises or by the Spartan lifestyle. I mean, before we went in this interview, I love the name Spartan because it's stripping away the nonsense. It's getting down to the essentials. You have to get down to the essentials in your body, and you have to get down to the essentials in your mind. And the mind, the essentials in your mind, is that quiet, like I said about the ocean, that calm, subtle level of the ocean. Not up here where you're distracted and you're action and reaction and sad and happy, which is that equanimity. And that is yoga of the mind. And I think you can't look to meditation as the solution to all problems, and you can't look to physical activities as the solution to all problems. In the toolbox of life, there's more than one tool.
Sure.
And so I think what's wonderful and bodes well for a complicated, noisy, extravagant, indulgent lifestyle is that meditation and yoga and exercise and these real life things like chasing deer rather than, I like to call them first world problems, like I'm electrocuting myself.
Right.
It's like, but real stuff, that's getting us down to our basics. And getting down to basics means more powerful, happier inside in a real way. Not I'm happy because I got this bauble, but I'm happy because I'm connected.
Well, look, I think I could continue along this line for a long time because a
couple of hours.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. But let's switch it up here just a little bit. As you're now kind of at the top of the heap here. Or one of them, right?
Yeah.
So whether you'll admit it or not.
Yeah,
but,
a lot of us.
So 45 years in. But when you started, certainly not. So there was a path to your success.
I've lived by this code. I heard this long time ago, the two fundamentals of success. Once you have something that seems right, conviction, and I see that as a vertical thing, just to the core of your being, conviction, and persistence over time.
Right.
And that's horizontal. So I think conviction that you believe, and that's in a relationship, that's when you're raising your kids or do something. So I have deep conviction and I don't give up. And it's persistence over time. For me, the meditation was, this is a real deal. This is for a skeptical, cynical guy who didn't believe in anything.
Right.
When I had the experience,
but once you believed in
it. And the belief came from the experience.
Right.
It's like you trust a friend when the friend comes through.
Sure.
So the meditation worked. And I thought, I'm going to teach this. And even though 45 years ago people thought it was bogus, I worked with others and we set up medical conferences and we raised money for research and we went to schools and businesses, and now they're coming to us. So we had 40 plus years of wandering in the desert with that conviction and persistence, and now it's in schools everywhere, it's in businesses everywhere. We're working with the National Football League, which needs it because of concussions.
Wow. At any point in there, did you ever say to yourself, this isn't working, I won't make it, the business will fail? How do you overcome those obstacles? And again, the tips you gave are great, but
I'll tell you, it's really good. And this is how meditation has helped me. Because when you're trying to do something new and innovative that you believe in and you're not just sort of plugging into the system, then there's a lot of obstacles. There's a lot of things that come your way over the years. And this is the key thing when we're working with military bases. The word resilience is everything.
It is.
And it's not just physical resilience, it's mental resilience. And how do you handle when you call up 30 people about an idea and all 30 are not interested or don't take your call? Or how do you do something? When you try and you set up a conference and nobody showed over the years, or you get turned down. I have a lot of friends when I was a young kid who started nonprofits, and they just got beat up and they quit. And I'm like, I'm happier now than I was when I was 18, and 100% because of meditation, because of resilience. It's like you can have a tree that's brittle, and I tried to, as a kid, we had a tree in the backyard that wasn't healthy, and you try and build a tree fort, there's Bob on the ground.
Sure.
But then you got a tree that's healthy, you can take all the weight. So resilience for me is the key.
Well, it's interesting when you talked about trying to get the military contractor, the military interest, because, again, we've done a few of these, and I remember back, and I don't remember his name, I'm sorry for that, but Oakley Sunglasses, when the gentleman who kind of started that business came out to military bases and would set up little kiosks or something, try to get guys to wear them. And at the time, they wore Foster Grants. And
Right.
nobody will look at these things. Nobody will buy them. And now you can't find a soldier, Marine, on a planet that doesn't have these Oakleys on their heads. You know what I mean? But he stayed with it. Got to find somebody. Got to find a champion. You know, somebody to get you.
Well,
in
your
the
career,
right direction.
your career. I mean, you read about this guy. Just, you know, you had to have times when you don't believe, you know, when people aren't believing in you, when you're doubting to a certain extent, and you just get up and you know, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing what's right. And you got it. I just think, someone one time said, there's other keys to success. Well, the ancient thing, you have to be true to yourself. You have to be, and
Right.
for me, meditation helps me be true to myself, because the clutter, it's that Spartan existence. The clutter, the noise, the extravagance goes, and you're just left alone, that simple, settled state of awareness. Be true to yourself and do what you know to be right, and don't do what you know to be wrong.
No, and I do. I like to go to the gym. I like to work out. And it was funny, when I was younger, when I was like a company commander, so that's when you're like a captain, my lieutenants, I would get to the gym at like 5:30 in the morning. And our company PT would start about 6:30, so I'd work out about an hour before everybody else. And so the lieutenants started coming to work out with me. And then they got upset when I got upset and said, get away from me. This is my hour
Right.
where I am trying to get focused. I mean, it looks like I'm over here lifting weights. I'm actually trying to get focused
Exactly
for the
right.
day. And say, I don't want conversation right now. And I don't
That's
want,
great. Love
I
it.
want to be by myself. And
Love
I want
it.
to get this done so I'm ready for everything else the
Love
day
it.
has to bring me.
Love it. There's a beautiful, beautiful quote which I mentioned to you before from the great philosopher Lao Tzu. He said, "To the mind that is still, the universe surrenders." And that means there's obstacles in life. And if you have a complicated mind, you're a victim of all those obstacles.
I got to believe you're like a Bruce Lee fan.
Are you kidding?
I'm picturing
Big
some
time.
big Bruce Lee Enter the Dragon poster back there. or something.
Yeah. Big
Because,
time.
I mean, he had a lot of those very similar philosophies.
No, but even in military, what you want is the warrior. You don't want a person who's overreacting.
Oh, no.
You want a person who's equanimity, who's calm and clear and focused and intelligent and makes the right decision and is not impulsive and is not taking out his stress using drugs and alcohol and jeopardizing. That's what you want. Meditation, transcendental meditation, is a warrior's meditation.
I remember once, and I won't get into war stories, but I was in a Humvee, and I was a younger lieutenant. There was a lieutenant colonel in a front seat, and another guy came running up breathlessly to tell us about a situation, and the colonel was like looking at us and said, calm down. And the guy was like, you don't understand. He said, is there somebody shooting at us? No. Calm down.
Beautiful.
Stop.
Beautiful.
Tell me again, what is it you're trying to tell
Beautiful.
me? And just give it to me without all the emotion.
You learned, life lesson
yeah,
for
so
you.
you're watching, and you say, okay, that's how you do it when things are going off all around you, kind of thing. You just center on what it is that's important at that moment and focus on that.
There's a wise colonel.
Well, he was. There's a lot of them out there, contrary to a lot of popular belief, but there
I
are
believe
some
it. I
brilliant
believe it.
people out there. All right, so one thing we always end up with, and I probably could guess this, we always ask people what is their favorite exercise. So something other than TM, if you're doing anything.
I swim. Swim.
Swim, okay. You look like a swimmer.
Yeah, I swim. I love
Swimming's phenomenal.
Yeah, from a kid when I was on a swimming team. I swim because it's long hours back and forth,
Sure.
and just sometimes you're just drinking chlorine.
Well, listen, this has been a great discussion. I really
and no
appreciate
fountains
you.
and no
nothing.
That was a really terrific segment. It really resonated with me. I think you're probably similar than I am, with a whole lot of energy. And years ago, I actually, a doctor wanted to put me on medication, and the medication was to slow down, to chill out, to do all that kind of stuff. And
Me too.
fortunately, another doctor recommended meditation instead. And so I went the meditation route versus the medication. And
Ooh, that meditation versus medication.
absolutely. And it was mindfulness meditation, which is parallel to transcendental meditation. It's a different approach, but it's the same end result. And once I started down that path, it made an enormous difference for me in my life. And the way I described it was, I love going fast. I don't want to slow down. I love being that guy. But when you come into the turns at 200 miles an hour, it's really important to be able to gear down to maybe 100 so you can get through them.
Wow.
And
Great
instead of
analogy.
going through the tires
Great
and the stands
advice.
and the hot dog cart and keep going out in the parking lot, which I did sometimes. And but
So every day of my life.
but it was neat though, because to start to research that and understand how many of the greatest successes in our society, whether it's in business or entertainment, or, Colonel Ryan, you've certainly said that in the military, this is an important thing too, right? Where you learn how to control your mind.
Well, it is. And I don't know, I said in the interview, I'm clearly a skeptic, and you guys know me well enough to know that this could be a salesman, mumbo jumbo kind of thing. But I tell you, I sat there and I listened to him, and he's got the science behind it, and he's got the experience and the knowledge, and he he can walk you through there, and so you become a believer very quickly, right? And he talked about how this thing was basically an ancient practice and a warrior's practice, and kind of the focus at the time when you need it the most, especially you're going to go into battle. So nowadays, whether that battle again is in a corporate boardroom or whether you're at the starting line of a race, right? But how do you get to that point where you're ready to face whatever it is that your day is going to bring upon you, right? That challenge. And you sit and you actually can lower your body's cortisol levels and the rest of it, and make yourself just blank out everything else around you and focus on that moment and then perform. And so to me, I think it's great. And again, he talked about that he's introduced this, or at least he's got grants, and he's working with the VA, and he's also working with at-risk teens, or I guess all teens, in some school districts and everything. And those are two big populations that can clearly use it. I'm sure there's many others out there.
Prisons.
Pain.
Yeah.
People who can overcome pain using meditation as well. It's something I don't do. It's a skill I don't have. I think meditation is a great skill to be able to do. I actually really wish I could learn meditation to be able to switch off sometimes. I think it would be really useful for me in my career. But I've certainly seen patients who've been able to meditate their way through significant levels of pain. Again, it's one of those things that's really difficult for researchers to prove. So a lot of these areas haven't got the sort of the research papers that have been thrown at drugs, for example, because it's much more difficult to research. But there have been MRI studies where they, put people through EEG studies where they measure the electrical waves in the brain when people are meditating, and it looks good. It does look good.
When you mentioned sort of the opportunity for skepticism, and you talk about it's hard to quantify, and yet when you look at what you're actually trying to do, you're trying to calm yourself down, make better decisions, find a space inside you, a still space that is always there. It's not the chattering that's always going on. And you think about whether it's prayer, people who pray, it's whether you want to describe it to a higher power or not, it gives them a grounding and a center. And when you think about anything that we're doing, we focus and we breathe and you calm down and then you approach it better. So from the standpoint of, some of the more mystical things that people ascribe to it, you don't even need that. And that's what really sold me on it, was that it doesn't have to be religion or deep Eastern philosophy. It's simply, can I slow down? Can I make better decisions? Can I feel better about myself, my life? And can I have a peace of mind that tells me that no matter what's going on around me, I can always find that still space. And but one thing that you mentioned about not meditating and wishing that you had that practice, so many people use one of two excuses for why they don't meditate. Either I don't meditate because I can't slow my mind down, which is like saying I don't eat because I'm so hungry, or I don't do yoga because I'm not flexible. It's a great way to become.
I don't know how to. I've never been taught. So if you want to call me and let me know,
we're going to talk off camera, because that's actually an area of expertise that I have.
Definitely.
And but the other side of it too is people say, I just don't have time. I mean, where am I going to find 10 minutes? And the funny part about that is they say that you should meditate for 10 minutes every day. And if you don't have 10 minutes, meditate for 20.
I like that.
Because you really need it more than anybody if you can't find 10 minutes, right? So anyway, I just want to throw that in there that for anyone watching that who wants to look into meditation, there are several different schools. Transcendental meditation obviously was very popularized in the 70s and has still maintained itself as a dominant thread. Mindfulness meditation is another great one. John Kabat-Zinn from Massachusetts really brought Western Buddhism over with that idea. But even if it's simply just sitting and breathing for 10 minutes, when you talk about how to meditate.
Imagine sitting not breathing for 10 minutes.
That's a whole different thing. Then we'd have to call you.
I've taken this podcast to just sit and breathe for 10 minutes.
We noticed that.
Wow.
Yeah. Hey, and you know what? I'm much calmer because of it.
It was a very calming influence on all of us. Thank you.
So now that we're all so chilled out, if you want to find out more about Bob Roth, more about Transcendental Meditation, more about our podcast, or to see any of their episodes, go to SpartanUpPodcast.com. I also want to mention, if you're listening on iTunes, fantastic. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Post a review so that more people find out about us. And also check us out on YouTube, because some great looking people around me, really great looking person behind the camera, and Marion, who you don't get to see, but we do, and trust us, she looks fantastic. Thanks so much.
Breathe deep.
Thank you for listening to another epic story of success.
We hope you enjoyed the episode. To find more show notes, audio, and video, please visit us at
/096. The Spartan Up Podcast is brought to you by Spartan.
To find a race near you, visit Spartan.com.